Support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Avenelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Avenelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown Podcast. The Boro Podcast that gives you all of your Boro match day chatter in a podcast. And Middlesbrough's fourth defeat and sixth defeat in 7 games sees us drop to 11th place in the championship table, 4 points off the playoffs. We do have a game in hand, but pressure is mounting on Michael Carrick. And before we come to one key takeoff, Stainer and Thomas, want to go to the supporters and go to Twitter first and see what people have been saying and what their key takeouts are. David says, "I seen the lineup. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Christ knows what Carrick was thinking when he thought that up." And then Alex says he's run out of words, to be honest. Dean says, "I think I'm going to go and watch another sport now. I think darts is very good at the moment, Dean, so go and watch that." And then Swaggy Pablo has said, "We finally found consistency." And by that, I feel like, 4 defeats in a row, 6 and 7 in all competitions. That is fairly good consistency.
Yep.
Dana Moll, what is your one key takeout from, the last couple of weeks?
Well, my key takeout is that I just feel exasperated with Middlesbrough right now, to be honest. Michael Carrick said that his team had attacked training this week and they had 9 days to prepare for that Sheffield United game. And the result of them attacking the week is 0 points and 2 fairly insipid, uninspiring performances. The Sheffield United game, I was just furious, to be honest. The first goal is just Giles and Travers not taking control of the situation. Jezrin Raksaki scoring quite possibly the easiest goal of his career. The second one, much like Wilson Isidore's goal against Sunderland, 1 ball through, a goal. And then after Ahmed Hodzic scored that third one, which was a mistake from Travers, I just turned the telly over. And funny enough, I put it on BBC One and the title of the programme was "Am I Being Unreasonable?" And the amount of expletives that were just bobbling through my brain after that game, it was so very apt. And then the Watford game, so disappointed in the team because I genuinely thought that they would stop the rot, and we did stop a rot, but it was Watford's and not ours. I was confident approaching kickoff that we would get a result. I think I said to you before the game, Jonny, as we were approaching the turnstiles, 2-0 Boro and 1-0 Watford it was in the end. I would say it's hard to know where Boro are going from here, but I guess the answer to that question, where are Boro going, it's backwards. We're 11th now, and if we continue the way that we're going, we're going to slide down the table even further and get cut adrift from the playoff picture. So yeah, just exasperating.
Tom, what's your key takeout?
I came away from the ground yesterday thinking I'm just feeling kind of numb to this now. Like, I got in the car, I listened in the morning on the way home as I normally do. And I was just like, I'm not even getting angry about this situation because in a way I just expected it. And I expected that nothing was going to change in this game. But don't get me wrong, I'm still really disappointed that we lost in the way that we did. I thought first 10 minutes or so, it was only really going one way, and that was ours. And I thought, right, maybe we are putting it right here. It's disappointing to me that we're doing it against, a team equally as bad as us in the form table. And, we didn't come back with any sort of reaction against Sheffield United. And then it just kind of tailed off from there. And I noticed things in that match again. Even within that first 10 minutes, there was like Luke Ayling passing the ball like a yard to the side of Van den Berg. And there's plenty more examples of that through the 90 minutes. But you look at that and you just think, you as a professional footballers, it's like there is no excuse for being that relaxed in a pass that you're just passing it 1 yard away from someone who's 5 yards away. Like, anyone in the stands could have made that pass and got it to the feet. Like, no one seems to be on the same wavelength, and it's. I mean, like I said, it was frustrating to watch. Now it's just I'm like numb to it because it's just what I expect from Boro, and it's really not. It's not the position this team needs to be in if we're going to achieve anything this season. We can't be doing this, and especially at this stage of the season.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of games to go, and ideally, when you're in the position you're in, you think, oh well, yeah, we can bring that back, and you can do that very quickly. In football, you could do it in a week. But yeah, I'm kind of the same as you guys. I felt a bit numb, a bit gutted, I would say, more than anything. You know, I tweeted on the Wednesday night that I switched off after 1-0. And I had a lovely evening after that. You know, it was a lot better than watching that rubbish at the time. And you know, my key takeout was probably I'm gutted that this is probably kind of the end. It feels so at the end at the moment. I think when you look at 6 defeats and 7 in all competitions, not good enough. You know, I feel like Carrick's been let down in the market slightly with not addressing some really key issues. The right back being one of them. Maybe another fit midfielder would be nice, but the centre forward one for me is the key. And I love Tommy Conway, and I think he's fantastic, but he's not fit yet. And Kelechi's not fit either. You know, I know Seville has really good food, and that's where I've been, but he looks about 20 stone overweight, and it's just like, how? You know, he just doesn't look match fit, and it's really frustrating for me. But it puts Middlesbrough in a position now where do you keep him in terms of Michael Carrick, or do you start to look somewhere else to try and salvage a season and look to rebuild again in the summer, because you are having to probably address even more issues that will most likely appear. The likes of Hayden Hackney, I can't see being here in the summer. The likes of Rav van der Berg, I don't think he'll be around either. You've got to do a lot of work to keep them at the club, I'd say, because there's a lot of Premier League clubs looking at these players, and you know, some from abroad as well. If you're looking at Hackney too, so it's a really interesting time for Boro. It very is much a make or break, and it's a big decision that has to be made over the next few weeks. But I don't just think it's solely on Carrick. I also think it's solely the players and the recruitment. I think collectively as an effort is where the problems are truly lying. But we can come on to that in just a moment. But let's address the games for the week, and we'll start to move into Carrick's future a little bit later on. But Sheffield United, Tom, you know, after the Sunderland game, you did say that you wanted to see a reaction from Boro. Do you think they gave you that at all?
Absolutely not. You know, they had, 9 days on the training ground. They're posting photos on Instagram going, oh yeah, it's all smiles around the place. I'm like, why is it all smiles around the place? Like, it's the last thing I wanted to see as a fan is like, oh yeah, look how happy everyone is in the camp at the moment. I'm like, they have nothing to be happy about. I want to see like everyone focus on the task ahead, and I want to see some sort of reaction at Sheffield United. And they were immensely poor in the first half. How we ended that 1-1 at the end of the half was beyond me. And I mean, we were beyond fortunate to get that penalty. I will say. It just seemed like we could never get anything going. Every time we did get the ball, we just gave it straight back to them. And especially in the last 2 games, that is not a Boro team I've seen under Michael Carrick. That's a Boro team that I've seen, you know, at the end of, say, Tony Mowbray's reign, or, you know, the majority of Gordon Strachan's or Johnny Woodgate's. Like, they have no cohesion on the pitch. And, yeah, Sheffield United looked like a team who were going for top 2. We looked like a team who'd never played together. And, yeah, I mean, as much as I do think there's togetherness in the players, and you can see that on the rare occasions that we do score a goal. They'll go over and do the celebrations together and stuff like that. It's not translating to the rest of to the rest of the game on the pitch. So no, I thought we were immensely poor in the Sheffield United game, and actually, as Dana said earlier, there was only one direction we were going, and it was backwards, and it was backwards from the Sunderland game, and we've gone even further backwards against Watford.
Yeah, and on the Sheffield game, I think after 10 minutes, you could pretty much see how the game was going to plan out. And as soon as they scored, it was like, I've watched probably enough football now to see where I think a game can go on. Obviously, it's unpredictable football. Anything can happen and anything can change. But from the outset, I was looking at it and going, we're probably going to get nothing unless we're very lucky. And then there was a penalty that Boro were given in that first half, which Bergzorg converted. Do you really think it was a penalty? Because you see a lot of this in football now, a lot of holding the box. It was a bit of an unusual decision, I would say. But were you hoping that was also like a catalyst as well? Like, you've been under the cosh in the first half, but this could ignite the second half of Boro, which we've seen so many times in the past.
Yeah, you know what? The penalty, it was barely a penalty. I think if there was a visual threshold of what is deemed a penalty, it would fall beneath it for me. I guess the referee's looking at it and seeing that Jack Robinson is probably holding on to Edmondson longer than Edmondson's holding on to Robinson, but it's all a bunch of 6-2 threes. And I don't know why Edmondson's trying to throw hands afterwards. It was all just very weird. I mean, thank you to the referee for that at the time, and thank you to Delano Bergzorg, the rare beam of sunshine in this rather miserable, dismal Middlesbrough team, for dispatching that. I mean, Bergzorg giving it the old shush and blah blah hand movements. What is with that? Because Letterlath did that a lot too, and it's like Bergzorg's in good form, so I can let him off, but the team aren't. So the Sheffield United fans had a good old laugh at that. In terms of a catalyst, I actually thought we watch enough football games as football supporters, don't we, to know that a lot of the time when there's momentum for a team, it can swing in the other team's favour, and all it takes is a corner or a shot, and suddenly things start to change. I did think that was going to happen. I acknowledged it was an onslaught, let's be honest, from Sheffield United, because they were cutting through us so easily. On the edge of our box, into our box, there was a few movements, good interchange of positioning from their players, and they just got through us far too easily. I thought that, okay, we've managed to keep the score to 1-0. It'll change for us. We'll get an opportunity. We'll get the momentum. Obviously, we did get the opportunity with the penalty, but as we've kind of alluded to, it was rather fortuitous. But Boro, even despite that, just looked very fragile, and I think they played the game like Wayne Rooney's Plymouth would. Or it was kind of almost like a cup match in which you've got a massive underdog playing a side that are hugely favoured. But this is a Middlesbrough team against Sheffield United where I don't feel like there's that big a gap between them. And by that I mean there's not that big a gap in terms of what I've just described there. We are not a minnow playing a big giant here. I can see we are an inferior side with an inferior manager, it has to be said. But Boro just looked completely devoid of any confidence within that game, and it was really quite uncomfortable a watch, I would say, and littered again with mistakes. Tyrese Campbell really, we got let off on one, because when he went through one-on-one, my head was on Mars, because between Giles and Hackney, oh my god, how did they let that happen? Where it was a flick on, Giles flicked the ball on backwards. Tyrese Campbell actually falls over, he stumbles. He manages to regain his footing, and then between Giles and Hackney just pissing about with it, and no one takes possession of the ball. It runs loose for Tyrese Campbell, and thank God Matt Travers was there and saved it, and thank God Tyrese Campbell didn't square it to Ben Bertrand Diaz, because we would be talking about a 4-1 defeat if it wasn't for that. Spared our blushes and then some. It's still, despite that, was just not good enough from Boro. Really not good enough. And it tells a tale of a side that are really out of form, really devoid of confidence, and going backwards, as I mentioned in the key takeout.
Yeah, and those individual errors just keep cropping up, and we've seen as well on top of that two passes which are very similar from the Sunderland game and in the Sheffield United game, and breaking the defensive line and getting in behind from that, really trying to thread that ball through the defence, focusing between that wing back and the centre back. How did Boro address it then? Because for that second goal for Sheffield United, that very similar thing happened again, and it's probably not going to be the last time we see it, probably until the end of the season, to be honest.
Yeah, you know what? Me and Tom were talking about this before we started recording, and I genuinely think it is an unfortunate, well, not an unfortunate, I guess it is in a way. It's a result of how we play because Giles pushes forward and then it leaves that space in behind. And all it really does take is that quick turnover of possession. Boro need to be better in possession, by the way. That's where it starts. And one ball forward. That is literally all it takes. When I looked back at it, Giles is forward as he should be on instruction because that's really where you want Giles to be, further up the pitch. Boro, again, contextually, they're in possession. I feel like when I watched it back, Edmondson could react a little bit better there. You've got, I think it's Campbell is being, I can't remember, it might be in Campbell, being marked by Ralph Vandenberg. You've got Callum O'Hare being marked by George Edmondson. But could Edmondson just react a little bit quicker and come forward and just close that gap? He doesn't, and it's far too easy for Ben Burt and Diaz. And especially given the fact that we saw pretty much the exact same thing happen with Wilson Isidore the week before, it's just not good enough. And yeah, it's a result of how we play. And that's basically the crux of the issue there. When you push a player forward in Ryan Giles, you're always suspecting behind, and maybe we're just going to have to concede that we're going to concede chances and potentially goals that way. Because I can't see Michael Carrick changing it, and I can't see Ryan Giles being played in a way where he's deeper than that.
Yeah, and transition-wise, you're always under the cosh when you try to be expansive. And when you watch Middlesbrough play, sometimes you do try and spread your team out so you're able to stretch your team, able to play in certain areas to create chances where you want to create chances. When Boro lose it, they are so out of whack, and the space that you have to get back into was too much. When I think that's what Carrick alluded to in his post-match press conference when he was saying that the pitch was too big. He means that Boro were too expansive and get it in. He wasn't actually saying the pitch was too big, so please don't think that. But yeah, look, and on that as well, you know, if Giles is really pushing up the pitch, you've got to move yourself over and really have that solid base in that centre of the pitch and really start to really limit what you can give away. But Boro is just too expansive. The gap between your centre back and your full back's too big. The gap between your centre backs and your midfield is too big. Big shape problem. And I think that's why Middlesbrough made some of the changes that they did against Watford. So on the defeat against Watford in the 1-0 yesterday, Boro did make 4 changes with Neto, Borges, Dan Barlaser, Whittaker and Conway all coming in for Ryan Giles, Illing Jr., Azaz and Delano Bergzorg. Guys, what were your thoughts on the initial changes when you seen the team sheet yesterday?
I was kind of intrigued as to how it was going to look. I think because of the way that this at the club post the team sheets, it's never in like an order of, you know, who was going to be playing where. So, you know, you're always trying to like figure it out. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, is he trying to go like 4-3-3 here? Because we are playing 3 centre mids. From what I've heard before, Conway has played kind of on the left and cutting in for Bristol City before. Ian Acho can be in the middle of the 3. I was like, it could be that. And then the way we were lining up as the game started, I was like, nope, I was completely wrong. We're trying to do something very similar to what we've been doing. Just, you know, Hackney's playing on the left for some reason. Yeah, initially I wasn't as kind of like angry as some people at that lineup because I was like, okay, we're trying something different here. But then when we lined up and we weren't trying anything different at all, and it was just, you know, changing personnel, I was like, what is he doing? Because I mean, dropping Bergzorg, arguably our best on form player, bit of a weird decision. But then dropping Azaz and Illing Jr. after the Sheffield United game, I did kind of agree with because Illing Jr. looked like he'd won a competition midweek to play for us. And I think out of all the times that we just gave the ball straight back to Sheffield United, I wouldn't be surprised if he was the cause of the majority of them. And then Borges in for Giles, it was just kind of like, yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, I thought about 50% of those changes were warranted. The other 50% were quite puzzling. And then, yeah, to pick that lineup, but then not be trying anything different with that lineup and just be going for the same sort of system really confused me, and I was really kind of wondering, what is he doing here?
Yeah, you know what? I was saying before the game, that team is horrific. There was one main square peg in a round hole, and it was Hackney on the left. I know why now he dropped Delano Bergsog, because he was saying that he wanted Boro to be more compact and he didn't want us to be as open. But then when you look at how we actually played that, and Tommy actually disagreed, we were playing a different system because it was very fluid, almost too fluid. You had Whittaker and Iheanacho pretty much on top of each other on the right-hand side. You then had Hayden Hackney pull right in central, veering towards the right-hand side again. If Carrick was trying to be compact and stop potentially Chakvetadze from having an impact on the game because he's a very good player for Watford, then maybe that's why he did that. But then you look at the left-hand side and there was fuck all there. There was just Borges. And that's not really different to what we usually see under Carrick. But I still thought it was weird because of the way that other players were positioned on the pitch too. It just left us especially vulnerable on that side. We didn't really get targeted down there so much. So that, I suppose that was a blessing in disguise. But I just thought it was a very strange team, and baffling with Bergsog being dropped anyway, regardless of what Carrick wanted from the game, because he's been our best player recently. And a lot of people have likened it to when Chris Wilder dropped Giles and Jones for the Coventry game. I don't think it's quite there, but it does smack of a manager that's trying so desperately to figure out a resolution to these problems and still not finding it, because when he basically undid his decision at half-time and took Barlasser off and put Hackney back in the middle for Bergsog to regain his position out on the left, it was the admission from Carrick that did not work. And it's weird with Carrick at the moment because he has tried things. We've seen Borges underlap instead of overlap. We've seen us go a little bit more direct. We saw us be very compact, playing a low block against West Brom. That worked. But with the exception of that, a lot of the other changes just haven't yielded the results. And that's what makes me think, right, he's trying things. Nothing's working. Is it now a case of, right, what needs to be changed is the manager? Because that was one hell of a swing and one hell of a miss from Carrick with that team selection.
I want to add just to that on the team sheet, the form, the system, and the changes we made, the art to stop a transition, which I was just alluding to earlier. So you would have a double pivot in midfield. So you would see it in that first half where Ayling was a lot deeper, and we were playing a back three. In possession, and you see Borges really stay wide and try to make that run out wide. You would have Hackney coming in central, so in possession you'd have Barlasser and Morris, who are sitting a lot deeper than they have been in previous games. Hackney was trying to roam. Then you'd have, like you were saying there, Iheanacho and Whittaker out wide. I think personnel would make that system better. Personally, I think if Ben Doak was fit, I think Ben Doak would fit really well into that. Azaz for me would have been, if we were to probably play it right now, if Azaz, he's been poor. I've said a couple of podcasts ago, a few podcasts ago, watch Finn Azaz because he's really good. If you watched him now, you'd be like, Jonny, what the hell are you on about? Because he's been awful since, and that's why he's been dropped. But if you were to keep that and maybe adjust personnel, I don't think Hackney would fit in that double pivot and sit. I think he's better, probably more advanced if you wanted to do that. And if you were to do it there, yes, then personnel-wise, I would have liked to see Bergsog on the left, Hackney in that middle, and then if he was fit, Ben Doak on the right, but he's not, so you've got to put Whittaker there for now. And then you've got Tommy Conway up front. That would have given you enough base and enough people around you to get the ball in behind where you needed to. But we didn't, because when you want everyone to come in central, like the likes of Iheanacho, the likes of Whittaker, and the likes of Hackney, who are all trying to cut in together, you create a cluster in midfield, and then you don't have the ability to get in behind, and you tend to play like a bit of a horseshoe, which happened in that first half, and you're playing in front of Watford, which made it really easy for them to defend against. So when you see Delano come on in that second half, that's a reaction to say, right, we need to get this ball in behind and trying to make something happen. You could have possibly put Marcus Forson at half-time as well and taken off Iniacho and put Whittaker in central as well on top of that, and you could have made things a little bit better, a bit more expensive on that side of things, but we just didn't, and it didn't, unfortunately didn't work. I think it didn't work because of more personnel rather than just the game plan, because I think we didn't really get caught up in that first half. It was very much nullified apart from our own individual error in that corner as well we conceded on. But then the overall assessment of the game anyway, a lot of boos at the end of it, so everyone was not best pleased. I'm assuming your assessment is going to be on the same lines as that.
Yeah, you know what? I thought there was promise in the way that we started the game because we created an opening, albeit not a chance, through a really incisive ball from Edmondson down the left-hand side, played in Borges, who then played in Tommy Conway in the box. It goes down. We're appealing for a penalty. It's not. But I'm still like, okay, that's fine, because at least then we've created something there. We've cut them open. Potentially, their right-hand side is an area to target. We then also got a chance through high press, winning the ball back on the edge of Watford's box, and Tommy Conway brought a save out of the Watford goalkeeper. Then I thought, okay, maybe they're susceptible from playing out from the back. Target them there. And in fairness to Watford, to give them credit, I thought they grew from there in that regard. After that, Boro just became far too easy to target, or to nullify, sorry, and I completely agree with what you were saying there, Jonny. Everything came central, and it was very reminiscent of last season when Carrick was trying to find a resolution to not having Ryan Giles. Kind of ironic, we have Ryan Giles now. And that was a problem that we were encountering yesterday, because everyone comes in field. Hackney's obviously going to come in field with his positioning because he's a centre midfielder played out wide, and the way that we play on the left, that's going to happen anyway. Whittaker, he's going to want to cut inside onto his left foot. And to be fair, I thought there was promise in Whittaker's performance yesterday. Iheanacho's a completely different player to Finn Azaz, so where's the creativity within this Middlesbrough side? That's the one thing that I think, okay, McGree's injured, he's been replaced by Bergzorg, who's more of a potential goal threat than he is a creative influence. Finn Azaz is cripplingly out of form, and I think it's right that he got dropped, but then this is what I'm kind of saying last week. We didn't bring in anybody that's a surefied, like, number 10. So there's a problem. There's no Dork anymore. You've got Whittaker, who's another one of those potential goal threats, but not necessarily a massive, massive creative influence. So where's the creativity in this Middlesbrough team? I think we were probably more creative, or just as creative, from Inning Junior's corners as we were from open play. And, like, I mean, that's a positive, I guess, right? We've got somebody that could take a corner, good in swinging one, but it just... honestly, it was just it felt too easy for Watford. All they needed to do was be just a degree of compact and solid, and that was it. Yeah, but we still did have openings. Yeah, we had openings that could have been better chances. We just didn't take them, and Bergzorg did give us a threat and a spark, but even he, despite his good form, he should have done better with the chances that he had. So yeah, didn't test the goalkeeper enough ultimately.
Yeah, I'd agree. And then just on the Whittaker point as well, I actually thought when Azaz came on, Whittaker really started to come into the game. You can see that connection there, seeing him be a bit more adventurous, and you thought, okay, yeah, I can see that. And then we took him off and put Ilan Jr. on. And I'm still a bit unsure on why we're playing Ilan Jr. on the right-hand side. He's played 99.9% of his games on the left. He's always been on the left, played as a wing-back on the left-footed, everything like that. He is probably more creative there, but then to play him there, I'm just kind of like, doesn't fit like that, and I just don't understand it. But
square peg in a round hole again, square peg in a round hole. It's like, why are we doing that? But then again, like if he's played on the left-hand side, you have to take Bergzorg out or off, which I think right now, if Illing Jr. is going to play, he's got to be a sub for Bergzorg. I don't want to see him on the right-hand side. I just don't. He can play there. He has played there, but the majority of his minutes, like you said, are on the left-hand side. So why are we playing him on the right? Yeah. Like, I'm not surprised that his performance is not as good because it's his less good position. It baffles me. I hate it. I really hate it.
Yeah, I think you can always swap Bergzorg on the right-hand side, to be honest, like, if you are to do it. And you don't always have to play a pattern in a certain way. You can always flip it. And, if you wanted to make your right midfielder come in more centrally, and then play from that way and play with a left winger on the left-hand on the side, then you can do that. But then you leave the likes of Dijksteel or Ayling completely and fully exposed. And just on the Ayling sub yesterday, a bit uncomfortable, I would say, on that. But with Ayling, like, it's just one of those things where a player goes through those moments in the career where, unfortunately, it is just the end of the cycle, and you are pretty much there. So it's kind of like booing and jeering off. I'm like, meh, like, it's one of those things. Dijksteel wasn't fully fit for the game. He's played there, fine, switch it, whatever. But Tom, we'll come on to the next question before we just come on to the where we go from here next. But Carrick did say in his post-match yesterday after the defeat, he said the result of the players wanting to do the right things, but this being harder in the current run of form. Obviously, I've paraphrased that. But do you agree with what Carrick was saying yesterday? The players are trying to do those right things, but it's just not coming off right now.
I can see his point, because for me, I'm like I said, I'm still seeing that togetherness from the players. I'm not seeing it as like a case that he's completely lost the dressing room or anything like that. I think they are kind of stuck in a bit of a cycle at the moment, and I think that there are things from that game that that really show it. And I think it's like when we're trying to play out from the back. I noticed it a couple of times yesterday. It'd be like Rav passing it to Ayling, who's in the right back position, 5-yard pass, but then Ayling would give him it straight back. And it's just like, what was the point in that pass? There was no purpose to that pass. I think, and then it happens further up the pitch as well with like Ayling or Morris passing it to Whittaker, and the same thing happens. And it's like, there's no vision from the passer as like where the recipient is going to go from there. And then there's no kind of communication to the recipient of the ball, like, all right, cut inside or anything like that. So we end up playing these kind of pointless passes to keep hold of the ball. And I think another example, and this was a bit of an uncomfortable part of the game for me, was when we were playing out from the back. I can't remember if this was second half or not, because the halves were the wrong way around to start off with. But it was in front of the south stands, and we're trying to play out from the back, and no one seemed to have a clue on where to go with the ball. There's a lot of these aimless 5-yard passes. We're passing it into people who don't want the ball because they are under pressure. The crowd are getting more restless and getting on the backs. And it's just like, you can see what you're trying to do there in terms of playing out from the back and staying with the philosophy and stuff. It took until someone hoofed it up the pitch before everyone was kind of like ironically cheering. And I'm not saying the need to play it to how the crowd think it should be played, because, you know, I don't think any team should do that. But I think when it's that obvious that the crowd are getting on your back, to just get rid of it because you keep passing it to people in dangerous positions, and there's no plan on where to go from there, then that is an indication that they're still trying to do the whole playing out from the back philosophy, but there's no real intent behind it now, and no one really has a clue what they're doing with it.
We don't have the players to play out from the back, the defenders. And we were talking about this on Pro Clubs, weren't we, Jonny? We might have the midfielders too. We don't have the defenders too. Like, I remember asking a few episodes ago, you asked a few episodes ago, actually, Jonny, is Edmondson left-footed? And I thought he was. I mean, I've definitely got my answer to that now. He absolutely isn't. And it just makes not the decision to sell Clark, because we all know why Matt Clark wanted to leave, but the decision to not play him and actually play Edmondson ahead of him in that left centre-back spot where Matt Clark is left-footed, it just makes it all the more baffling to me. Because Matt Clark, as I said, naturally left-footed and can play out from the back. Edmondson can't. Like, it's not that he can't. It's just he's performing very poorly in doing that at the moment. So it's just, it's baffling.
Yeah, look, when I was saying that point as well, like, you do struggle a little bit with the likes of Dale Fry and with Edmondson. Those are your three. Luke Ayling, I think, is okay. Ryan Giles can do it. So can Borges. It's only really, but I think it's just a bit frustrating, I think, to watch it. But yeah, you need to bring in these players to really fit that system. You have lost some. I think Darrell Lenihan can play it to an extent, but you haven't seen him in 18 months. So there's a lot of underlying issues, I think, for that. But yesterday, it was very clear that there was a lot of discontent, especially at halftime. Then at full time as well, very loud in terms of boos. You've seen 6 defeats in 7 now. The season can feel like it's slipping away, and appreciate it can change. Football can change very, very quickly, and in 2 weeks' time, we can say it's back on HMS Pistol League, and with everything will be fine. But where do Boro go from here? And do we feel like this is the end of Michael Carrick's reign?
I don't think it's the end. It's definitely getting closer towards it, though. I mean, 6 defeats in 7, 3 wins in 15. I don't feel like we've played well for the majority of 2025 so far, with the exception of the West Brom game at home when we beat them 2-0. Like, fair enough, we've played well in 20 minutes against Sunderland, but what does that matter when we ultimately come out of the second half with a complete dip in performance and we lose that match? We can't afford to play well in spells and then lose the game still. We find a way pretty much every week to lose a game at the moment. And that's incredibly frustrating. And it's, as I said, Carrick's been trying to do things to rectify this form and it's not working. And that's why I feel like there's so many questions around him and now so many calls for him to go. I don't feel like it's time right now, mostly because I reckon Steve Gibson will probably be thinking, right, we've just had the January transfer window, we brought in players here, let them bed in, and then let's see what they can do. A point that I made on the radio yesterday that I want to bring to here as well is that we've signed players out of form, and we're bringing them into an out of form team. I don't think Illian Jr. was in form. I don't necessarily know if he was out of form, but then you've got Giles, who was really out of form and out of favour at Hull. Whitaker, who was out of form for Plymouth, and then Iheanacho, who was out of form for Sevilla. So, like, we've brought in these players that are out of form and we're bringing them into an out of form team. So basically, I don't feel like we should expect immediate impact, and ultimately that's what we're wanting, isn't it? We want that instant impact, and I just don't think that we're going to get it. And that's really frustrating, and it works against Carrick, but he's just, yeah, the team selection was a swing and a miss. And as I said, it was the kind of showing of a manager who's desperately trying to fix things and it's still not working for him.
I think we're at a point where Steve Gibson's got a decision to make, and how long he takes to make that is obviously completely up to him. I think the challenge is, at this stage of the season, how much longer do you give Carrick to turn it around? Because you could give him the Bristol City game, and I think it's Stoke after that. Give him those 2 games. We lose those 2 games. Everyone else around us wins. Then we're 6 points worse off, and the season is effectively over. I was reading Craig John's article for the Gazette this morning about the decision that Gibson has to make, and he was saying at the start of the season the aim was actually top 2. It wasn't top 6, and then as the season's gone on, we're looking like we're competing for the 5th and 6th places, and then if they are starting to look out of reach, I think that's when you start to kind of have that decision to make. And I'd be sad to see Carrick go. I think we have had some good times under Carrick, but I do wonder now how many of those good times were in his first half season and maybe towards the end of last season, where no one really had much to play for. And not that I want to kind of discredit the team for the run, but you know, towards the end of the season, we were looking fairly impressive, and it did give us hope and optimism for this season, and none of that's kind of been followed through on. You look at the points per game for the 3 seasons that Carrick's been here, or 2.5 a season, and it has gone down each season. And yeah, it's just looking at it going, this squad hasn't just became like this overnight. We have recruited well in some areas. I don't think anyone's going to be looking at the squad and arguing with the signings of like Conway, Whitaker, etc., because it is ambition shown from the club. But this hasn't happened overnight, and I think everyone can kind of see that it is the systems we're trying to play. So it's like with a squad with the quality that we have recruited, do we carry on with this, or do we try and change things up and hope someone else can get the best out of them and get us to ultimately not where we wanted to be this season, but close to that and still give ourselves a chance.
Yeah, on the points per game stuff as well, like, take the 5 out of 6. Before that, you're trending probably better than what you have done, but now obviously it's happened, so you are worse. Where we are at in terms of decision making, I felt yesterday leaving the ground, I was like, I'd be very shocked to see him in the dugout on Friday. And obviously I've slept on it since, and I've looked at it and gone, well, what would I do? There's a lot of changes. I think the January's been a difficult window for him in terms of Carrick wise and trying to get those players to bed in. Don't really have many options defensively now, and you're in a really sticky spot. And if he was to go, who's out there that can replace him and better the squad than what we've got? So there's a lot probably at play. It's a big decision, I think, for Boro now at the end of the season, because I don't allude to it at the start. You have a lot of changes that need to be made, and a lot of changes that will probably happen in the summer. So there's a lot of people and a lot of things that you can really consider in this. So it's not just this season. I think it's probably the future as well, what you'll probably look at. And are Boro good enough to go up this year? We've all pretty much said that probably not. And, I've always thought that we were about a 6th place team at the start of the season. I still realistically think we could get there if we try and turn it around. But it's a really difficult moment for Boro and a really difficult moment for Carrick. And right now, the results aren't good enough. The performances haven't been good enough. The players haven't been good enough. So it does, as a fan, because you're investing all the money, you're investing your time, your effort, all of this. You are watching a team wanting on to win. I think naturally you are going to be very emotional in that moment. Be like, well, if I'm not seeing any wins, then forget it. And it's not good enough and whatever. And you'll have people now saying, well, I always told you Carrick was shite. But realistically, at the time, not really, was it? I think now you'll go, okay, this is not good enough. And you can go from there. But, yeah.
It's a really big week coming up for Boro, because we've got Bristol City on the Friday, then we've got Stoke midweek, then we've got Derby on the 1st of March. That's a very important week for us. We've got a rotten record against Bristol City. The last time that we beat them was 2021, and I feel like whenever we play them, whenever we play them and we need a result, we don't get one. So that's going to be very, very big for Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough. The crowd are turning massively. I feel like Carrick is losing faith, or I feel like fans are losing faith in Carrick more and more with every passing week. I said last week, I think it was, that I've lost faith in Carrick, and it pains me to say that because I genuinely do think that his first season we played some of the best football that I've ever seen. Now, I will concede that I've seen some garbage football at Middlesbrough in my time supporting the club, but it still was very, very good, and I would love nothing more than for him to turn it around. But I think it's just the fact that he's trying tweaks and big personnel changes, and they're just not landing him the results. And that's what makes me think, where do we go from here with him? Now, I will say I have lost faith in him, but I still am like, I don't want him to go. And it's not really a case of because I'm so in support of Carrick. It's mostly because, and we were talking about this before the game yesterday, Boro are stuck in a cycle. We're reading the same book over and over and over again. what will probably happen is that we'll end the season pretty strongly. We'll go into the next season with optimism and belief. We'll have a summer in which we'll probably look at it and think, right, that's good. We've signed some exciting players. They'll get us excited. Good potential. Let's see it. And then we'll start the season horribly. And we'll start it slowly. Then we'll pick up around November. And then we'll tail off again. And then we'll pick up towards the end of the season. That's the cycle that we're in. It's promise and then underperformance. That's what it is. Or to kind of stretch it out further, it's optimism, lost optimism, renewed hope, and then underperformance. So that's what we're seeing, and I really don't think that will change. So I guess I'm kind of apathetic towards Boro's managerial situation, really, because I just don't think anything's really going to make a significant difference. We're just in a loop, and I guess I've just accepted that loop.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think I've had a season ticket for 20 years, and I'm just like, I've seen this narrative so many times, and it's look, that's football, I guess. It's into as Grant Lemeth famously once said. So, we're in a position where I agree with you. Then I think we're seeing a very big cycle appear again, and like that next manager also, it's important. Next manager's important. Next manager's important. Next manager's important. It's like having a really messy street and only doing really good bits in certain areas. So like you pot really clean, but everywhere else is messy. So like your recruitment department could be great now, but your underlying issues are still the same. So it's always going to be a glaring problem for Boro. But I think realistically now, if Carrick was to go this week, which a lot of the rumours are suggesting that he will be, if Carrick was to go, who would you guys realistically bring in for Boro?
I don't have an answer for this. I think there's a few things in terms of a profile I think we'd go for. Obviously, we had Kieran Scott on the podcast before, and he was like, he's got a list of people that he would act on if we were in that situation. And he was saying, obviously, we don't want to be in that situation, but you have to prepare for it. I think the way we're set up now as a club, and the way we've and the model we've kind of got, and the way we've recruited, I don't see us doing a complete 180 and signing someone with a different style of football. So the big name that's on social media at the moment is Steve Cooper. Now that is a big change in terms of style of football, and although he is he's got a proven track record in the Championship, I don't see us going that direction. I also don't see us going the other popular direction, which I'm surprised at how popular it's gotten on Twitter over the last couple of days. Of let's bring back Aitor. Like I said earlier, the team is looking like it's really together. And I think, although Karanka is responsible for some of my best memories as a Boro supporter and as a season ticket holder, because unfortunately I didn't have a season ticket around the time where Steve McLaren was manager, I don't think you bring him back into this team. Unless you want that dressing room dividing, ultimately, I don't think you do that. I'm not against the style of football. If someone comes in and makes us more solid at the back, still possession based, and just a little bit more efficient, sure. But I think that's a real kind of like nostalgia thing. Everyone's just like, it worked before, let's try it again. I don't think we bring Aitor back either. I don't think it's going to be one of the names that's kind of been bandied around more. I think, given what Kieran Scott has said before, if we were to make this decision, I think it would possibly be someone a little bit more out of left field. Maybe someone in League One, maybe a manager that's out of work who we wouldn't have expected, maybe someone from abroad, but I don't think it's going to be someone that is one of the popular names being kind of thrown around on social media at the moment.
Dana?
Yeah, as I said in my last answer, I just don't care, really, because ultimately I just think, well, constantly deliver underperformance, really. That's the mindset that I have right now with Boro. Because I remember at the end of last season, we beat Watford 3-1, and we went into that with just one defeat in 11 games, and that one defeat shouldn't really have been a defeat because it was that 4-3 against Leeds, and one of their goals should have been flagged as offside. And Lath had scored, I think it was like 11 goals in 12 games to end the season. He was in red hot form. He'd thoroughly arrived in the Championship. So we go into it, especially given that we were going to have a more settled summer with the lack of loans that were departing, and the loans that did depart, they were like, okay, well, thanks for your service, goodbye. So going into this season, there was optimism. I think it was contained optimism. I don't think it was ever, stay humble. But yeah, we've just underperformed, and that's so frustrating. And again, like going back when we had Chris Wilder, I remember being at Preston when we got absolutely tonked 4-1, and that was a pretty big game for us because it was, well, can we get into the playoffs? If X result and Y result goes our way and we win ourselves, then we're in there. We could sneak in, and we got hammered. And then I remember going back to the coach still and having optimism that, okay, we've got Chris Wilder in charge. He's a good manager. He's got previous for getting a club out of the Championship, and we're seeing better from the players than we were when Warnock was in charge. And then look how that ended, in a damp squib. Started the season, I think, was our worst start to a season like ever or something. And then he left. It just feels like we're watching that kind of unravel again, albeit in a different way, because Chris Wilder was, as I put it in a previous pod, of football slag, and he was looking at other clubs. But like, I don't know, ultimately that promise and then underperformance is, I feel like it's playing out again, which is why I mentioned the repeating story at Middlesbrough. So whoever comes in, it will honestly probably be the same. So I don't have a name either, because I don't really care to give a name. It's just, yeah, we're on loop.
Yeah, I think it's whoever manager comes in delays that loop from happening for the longest period of time. And look,
yes,
I think if I was to give names, look, if I was in Boro's shoes right now, I would maybe wait to the summer and then, depending on where we are, make that decision. And if you do get rid, Danny Rawls right there, you pay the fee and bring him in. If you have to make a decision right now, I think moving into a Steve Cooper world is just too much of a change development wise. He does fit the picture because he's good at developing players. He has done in previous roles at his time at Liverpool, his time in England set up. But from a footballing standpoint, it can be a lot more direct, a lot more pragmatic, of course, adaptable. Which, I know there's people that would want that, but for my preference, I don't enjoy direct style a lot more. And it is counter-attacking, of course, but you've said Dana before, Boro could be a counter-attacking team, so you could see that fit. And then I've got is there Lee Carsley? I quite like Lee Carsley because of his work that he's done with the 21s, how he's working with Hackney right now in the England setup. He's worked with Villan Jr. So, but then you've got the flip side of he hasn't got that championship experience yet, and it's relentless. So, is that a gamble? And there's more managers that will work. You're looking at Russell Martin, you're looking at Rob Edwards as well, and you're thinking, well, Rob Edwards did well with Luton when they went up. He did well enough in the Premier League, but this year's been a shambles for them. Russell Martin, a very unique, extreme possession-based coach with a real identity, and that probably wouldn't translate well into a Premier League system, but it would probably fit to what we would, but fans might not enjoy that. It's so open of what you would go for. If I had my gun to my head, I would probably try and wait to the summer and bring in Danny Roll if it wasn't working out. But if I had to make a decision right now, I'd maybe risk it for Lee Carsley if you weren't willing to pay the fee for Danny Roll to come in. And maybe, just bring Sir Gareth back. I'm joking. But on top of that as well, and I would just have to say as well, I did tweet something very satire as well yesterday around Carrick coming back, and it got a lot of traction. And I was like, oh crap, I need to start putting satire on my tweets. Because
I will point out from my answers, Jonny, they weren't directed at you. I have seen unironically tweets in, can Karanka come back? But that was before you tweeted.
Right, let's move on to trivia now then. And guys, we look ahead to Bristol City, of course, and this could be a game for the ages. Both teams call themselves Charity FC, so it will most likely be a draw. But first, I do love a bit of trivia on this podcast. And the question today, to get yourselves ready, is Uncle Albert Adoma played a combined 279 times for Bristol City and Boro. But who did he play the most for? And how many goals did he score for them? So that's your question of Uncle Albert Adoma played 279 times for Bristol City and Boro, but who did they play the most for? And how many goals did they score for them? So your timer starts now. Time is up. Time is up. So, answer time. Tom, I'll come to you first.
I've just had a right panic there because I was trying to use one of those, weird pencil things that you have to get the graphite out of, and it wasn't working. So I had to quickly find a substitute pen. Panicked, and I've written Boro for the first answer, and then I wrote 35 for the goals because I remember hearing 279. Then I realised it was combined.
I've gone for the exact same thing.
Well,
amazing.
He's a both right with Middlesbrough, so well done for that.
I got excited there.
He did play 143 games for Middlesbrough and 136 for Bristol City in all competitions, but goals for them. So for Bristol City, he scored 17, but for Middlesbrough, he scored 26. So not too bad, but 12 of those came in his first season at Boro.
Yeah, I remember he was our top scorer in that campaign. Yeah,
top scorer, Uncle Albert. But prediction-wise, for the Friday game, appreciate we can't predict whether Michael Carrick will be in the dugout or not. And we'll go for what we think is going to happen in the game and do a scoreline. So, Dana, predictions against Bristol City?
Ooh, you know what? I think Carrick will be in the dugout, and I reckon it'll be a draw. Although, right, Bristol City, apparently that you said their fans were saying they're Charity FC. They've only actually lost 3 of their last 10 home games, and 2 of those one of them was against Burnley, one of them was against Sheffield United. The most recent defeat was against Swansea. So at Ashton Gate, they're pretty good. I'm going to go with a draw straight down the middle. I'll go 2-2.
A Desmond for Dana Malt. And Tom, what are you going to go for?
Well, I think in terms of who's going to be in the dugout, we're not going to know because obviously it's shown live on Google Earth when we're at Ashton Gate. So you'll just see black specks in the dugout with the suits on and coats and that. But in terms of the result, I'm going to go 2-1 Boro. Mallory Martin free kick in the last minute.
Oh yeah.
Or
nice.
Whittaker. I think he'll probably have a decent free kick on him. He's got absolute wonderful left foot, so I can see him putting one top bins.
Marilyn Martin, I love that goal from him, by the way. What a rocket past David James, real throwback.
I like how the Bristol City defender then throws the ball and it bounces off Mallory Martin's head as he's turning around to celebrate. He does not give a shit. It's just a small detail that I really quite like from that goal.
God bless Marilyn Martin, but I'll probably go with... we never really get much of a City, do we? I think Tommy Conway is going to score the winner, and this will be
narrative.
The first ounce of shithousery this season, because I have missed Shithouse Island so much. I just want us to play it at this point. I might just, at one point in the season, I'm just going to say, well, here's Shithouse Island for the shits and gigs, and really piss off Tom's dad in the meantime because he hates it every time that song gets played. But
Yeah,
I
I don't
think,
get that at all. And you know what,
yeah,
though? I was away in Manchester last weekend for a stag do, and whatever bar we were in at the time, Club Tropicana came on, and I was the only one in there singing Shithouse Island, remembering how much I missed it with a tear in my eye. So,
yeah,
need it.
yeah. I do miss it. I think it's just one of those things where it's been one of those staple in the Boro breakdown over the last season, but yeah, it just hasn't been. And you know what? I'm just going to play it now.
Let me take you to a place where membership's a smiling face, brushing shoulders with the stars, where strangers take you by the hand and welcome you to Wonderland from beneath the Panama. Shithouse Island drinks are free, burning sunshine, there's enough for everyone. All that's missing is the sea. But don't worry, you're a shit house.
Oh God, I've missed playing that song every week.
That's not even the current island either. We've
I know.
updated it, and we haven't even been able to show the updated island because there's just been nothing to add.
Yeah, I know. It's just been one of those, isn't it? Just well, Tommy Conway, needs your time to shine. I want a knee slide and a big shush if we win. But knowing our luck, it'll probably be Scott Twine and Conway will get booed off the pitch. So yeah, I'll probably go over a 2-1 Boro win. There you go. But guys, thank you very much for joining me as always. So listen to viewers, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider and subscribe to the Boro Breakdown channel. Help us get found and chat and all that fun stuff. But for right now, this has been the Boro Breakdown podcast. And like the Boys to Men song, have we come to the end of the road? This has been I can't do it anymore. I'm still laughing at Yusuf on Shithouse Island. Anyway, catching a bit, guys, and we'll speak to you all next week. Up the butter.